What's up, everybody? Welcome back to GMs for Hire. My name is Will Bolson, along with Matt Perry today, and we were talking a little bit off camera, and we were discussing whether or not, whenever baseball returns, if it does so return this 2020 season, if the MLB should implement the universal DH, and we were having a little bit of a split opinion on it, and he's kind of shocked by my opinion of it. I'm a Cardinals fan, and he is a Yankees fan, so we have a National League and an American League representative, and sure as shit, the National League guy doesn't want the DH, and the American League guy wants the DH. He was kind of shocked by the fact that I don't want a DH because our pitchers hit, and I mean, they're not exactly the greatest hitting pitchers. To be fair, there aren't many great hitting pitchers in general. But for me, I love the idea of having a pitcher in the lineup. To me, it adds a different dynamic to the game, and it's just not the same as a DH. There's so much strategy involved in it, and I don't see where a DH is appealing. It adds so much more to baseball while having that pitcher spot in the lineup.
I mean, it did blow my mind, you saying that. I don't see how there's a real strategy behind it. I mean, a pitcher's job is to pitch. So, that's what they should be focused on. And I feel like if you're an NL team, which one of them wouldn't want a DH? You're looking for offensive production, and a DH is almost guaranteed to produce more offensively than a pitcher.
I mean, yeah, you're going to get more production out of a DH than a pitcher, absolutely. But I love the strategy of it. Whenever you're playing an American League team in an American League park, you have to abide by the DH, and there's no strategy to involved. You could be facing the number 8 hitter with 2 runners on and 1 away, and you're going to go, you can't just walk that guy, and you can't load the bases and set up a force at every base and then have the pitcher spot. Then you have an out at any base. You could have the double play opportunity. You could have the strikeout opportunity. It makes baseball strategic.
But there's strategy in different ways. Baseball is all about strategy. I mean, whether it's a pitcher or not, you plan that day. You're going against a righty, then you got to play the splits. Like who's DHing tonight? Who's best against the righty? I mean, it's still a strategy. It's a different strategy. I don't think putting a pitcher in there presents even a legitimate strategy, just because anyone can sacrifice bunt someone over or whatever the case may be. I mean,
yeah, but how pissed off are you whenever you have somebody such as, like, being a Yankees fan, if you have somebody like Andujar or Brett Gardner go up and sacrifice bunt? Like, how much would that piss you off to have a decent bat in that lineup have to go up there and drop a bunt?
I think the sacrifice bunt is good for baseball, and I think it's a good strategy. Brett Gardner applies sacrifice bunts probably more than anyone else on the team. I mean, that's his thing, especially when you got a guy with speed that could potentially even leg it out, make it legitimate instead of a sacrifice. I don't know. I think there's a place for the sacrifice bunt in the game. That doesn't piss me off at all.
So if you're cool with sacrifice bunts from a batter, why is it not with a pitcher? Like, why don't you want a pitcher hitting?
Yeah, but you're discussing such a specific situation. I mean, what happens when a pitcher's up to start an inning and you're swinging away? I mean, wouldn't you want a little bit of a better table setter?
I mean, you can, but that's another thing. You could try to attack different hitters just to get the pitcher to where he's leading off in the beginning of an inning. Because if he's up with runners on, he's probably going to go up there and sacrifice, try to move everybody over. He's probably, in 9 times out of 10, he's probably not swinging for the fences. I mean, not everybody's Madison Bumgarner. Not everybody's, decent hitting pitchers, Jacob deGrom being one as well. Like, not everybody can hit as well as some of the other pitchers in the league. And I think it just adds a lot more of a strategy. I think the NL is such a much more strategic league than the American League. The American League just goes out there, sees bat, puts bat on ball, and then just moves on with the day. And I feel like there's actually no strategy involved other than just writing your lineup card and setting it and just walking away. Like, I feel like being a manager of an American League team's got to be so fucking easy. You got to pick your pitcher, whoever's starting that day, and you have your normal 5-man rotation unless you're Kevin Cash. And then you have your 9 players, and that's who's going to play. And there's no substitutions that need to be made unless of injury. There's no substitutions that need to be made unless of, like, a very dire situation where you may need, like, a pinch runner. And basically your bench bats become useless because 9 times out of 10 you're not going to use them.
I mean, platooning is still a very big part of baseball on both sides, both leagues. So, I'm not sure where you're going with that. You definitely missed that point. Platooning based on splits lefty righty are definitely important still, but there's no way that having the pitcher hit it benefits the National League. I mean, looking at this statistic I have, the AL has beaten the NL in runs per game for the past 44 years now, and I mean I think the DH was implemented somewhere around 40 years ago. I think it was the 70s or the 80s, something like that. So I mean, it's clear that they have had some kind of impact, and I mean, offensive WAR goes up as a team if you have a DH. I mean, American League teams finished top four in offensive statistics last season. I think it's the Yankees, Twins, Red Sox, and Astros.
You even admitted yourself that 5 of the next 6 teams are all National Leagues.
5 of the top 10 teams are National
Right.
League.
So if the top 4
are
all American League, that means that 5 of the next 6 are all National League.
But I'm just saying, as a whole, the American League has outscored the NL for years, and this isn't just like a couple of years. This is 44 years. This is a long time.
I mean, yes, American League's going to score more runs by not having the pitcher, but I mean, it's just a pure like brute standpoint. There's no reason to platoon in the American League. You can set a lineup. In fact, I've been to multiple American League games, and the only time I've ever seen a pinch hitter in any game is the 9th inning.
There's no
only time. No, not during one game. Not during. There's no reason to come in and set up pinch hitters and everything like that. Like what is the point? What are you talking about then?
Platooning on a certain day. Say you're up against a lefty is on the mound, and a certain hitter is not good against lefties. He's a
I get that. I get where you're gonna write your lineup differently based on the day, but there's no actual skill to being an American League manager whenever it doesn't come to that.
Decisions you have to make. There are still plenty of skills and decisions that an AL manager has to make, the same as an NL. It's really
you can go. No, American leagues can go. This guy sucks against lefties. We'll play this guy. This guy sucks against righties. We'll play that guy.
Same thing. The NL does the same thing.
Yes, they're right, but there's more strategy throughout the game because an American League manager can set his lineup and then move on because there's no pinch hitters in a game. There's no strategy. There's no.
Sure, there is.
How?
It just depends on timing. It depends on the situation. There's still plenty of pinch hitters and pinch runners in the AL. You just don't.
I've seen pinch runners every now and then, but I never see pinch hitters in the NL or the AL.
Don't you think? Well, I mean, you don't watch the AL as much, so it's different. But don't you think that it would be better for the NL if you don't have to waste a substitute on a pitcher? I mean, this is another spot that you can fill in a different time. Like the Cardinals, so you're down in the 9th, and you got Goldschmidt on second. He's not the quickest runner. You could pinch run someone quicker. But see, if you do that for the pitcher earlier in the game, you don't have him to use later. It's just the pitcher's taking away, other opportunities to fulfill a situation. Yeah, I just think the pitcher hitting just overall takes away from, you're talking about strategy. I think it takes away from.
Well, I mean, there's more than one guy on your bench. You're going to have other people who could outrun more than Goldschmidt. Right, hell, even the National League uses, I know, especially with the Cardinals, because I watch them the most, I've seen pitchers use as pinch runners.
Right, but then you run into the injury factor. I've seen several pitchers get injured on the base pass, and it's, that's like probably the dumbest way a pitcher can get injured.
I mean, players can get injured all types of stupid ways, but that doesn't take away from the game any.
Well, I'm just saying you don't want to risk it. I don't disagree with pinch running using a pitcher. I just think it's very risky, and if it pays off, it pays off. But I mean, I've seen pitchers, careers end because of base running injuries, and it's just
What pitcher's career is ended from base running injuries?
Chien-Ming Wang was the Yankees ace, and rounding third base, I believe in Houston, he hurt his hamstring or leg. It was something with his leg, and he came back a few years later, for maybe 1 or 2 years with the Royals and a little bit with the Nationals, and then went back to China. And
who's to say that doesn't happen to anybody?
Name one other person.
Who's to say that you couldn't have your DH? I don't know who the DH. What is it? Stanton for the Yankees? Is he like the normal DH?
I mean, he's in left sometimes.
Typically,
He can DH. Yeah. I
he's
mean,
typical. Yeah, he's a typical DH for the Yankees.
sometimes, yeah.
So who's to say he's not rounding third and tears his ACL and then his career's over?
Yeah, I mean, that's different. I mean, we're talking about the pitcher base running right now.
Right, but I'm saying like, yeah, a pitcher can have a career-ending injury, but so can anybody.
But DHs run. I mean, you know,
Pitchers don't run.
I mean, technically, that's not what their main job is.
I mean, do you think POs just throw bullpens and then go sit down? You're a PO. You're a PO in real life.
Who's to say I run?
Why don't you run? You should do that as conditioning.
Yeah, but I don't pinch run.
Well, that's because you're a slow sack of shit. But that doesn't mean like you can't round third. That doesn't mean you couldn't run if you had to.
A rare thing and really shouldn't play into this argument at all.
Well, still, regardless, there's so much more strategy with a pitcher because if you're a manager, you could go up. You have to think about when you're going to pull the pitcher. You know, you may have your pitcher may be having a great day, but it may be like a 0-0 game. You come up to a big spot with the bases loaded, or you come up to something big. You have to think about: am I going to leave this pitcher in because he's dominating the lineup, or do I need to get my runs right now? Do I trust my bullpen? Like, where do I go from here? And it makes the game so much better because there's just so much more strategy.
Strategy doesn't benefit the NL. Strategy doesn't win the team a game. You know what? Clearly, statistically at least, what the NL needs is runs, and they're gonna get more runs per game, statistically, with the designated hitter in that lineup without the pitcher taking away at bats, taking away runs, taking away hits, taking away opportunities. You know that's how you level the playing field, honestly. Because I think the AL has an offensive advantage because they don't have to put a pitcher up to bat who has a career average of 24 or something stupid. Like, there's no point in putting someone up there. They're meant to be a pitcher. Pitchers pitch and hitters hit.
Well, I mean, yeah, if you have a ninth guy in your lineup who's batting around 250, you're going to have a better offensive statistics than a guy that with a lineup that has to throw in a guy who's batting under 100. That's just common math.
Yeah, but I'd rather have any hitter in the league over a pitcher in the lineup.
I mean, yeah, you'd like to think that like you want the offense and everything like that, but because of that, the National League is a completely different league. What are
the cons of a universal designated hitter then?
I mean, is there any con? No, but is there any con of having your pitcher in the lineup other than like a decreased team run? Who cares? Like,
there you go. Decreased team runs. Who cares? The offense. Who cares?
But if you have pitching, who gives a shit?
The win-loss column cares. Because you got teams.
Listen, all your runs.
Perfect example. You got a team like the Mets who don't score shit for DeGrom. You know, if DeGrom didn't have to hit, maybe they'd score a couple more runs. I'm not saying DeGrom is the only reason, but they don't.
You think if they can't score runs with their starting 8, they can score runs with another shitty guy on their bench?
I think offensive runs per game.
Because they're putting their best 8 hitters out there.
Yeah, okay, so you got one more on the bench. Whether that's Jed Lowry or whoever it is. It could be David Wright coming back from retirement and doing that. Anyone is going to do it. Anyone is going to increase offensive production. I said that. I'll take any hitter in the league over a pitcher batting.
I mean, any guy who's taking batting practice every single day is going to hit better than a guy who's not taking batting practice. That's correct, because you're facing pitchers who are throwing 100 miles per hour, 100 plus.
If you're in the NL, why aren't you taking batting practice?
Well, I mean, I'm sure pitchers do take batting practice, but they don't take it every single day, I'd imagine.
Well, maybe they should if they're hitting.
Well, then maybe that's something they could get onto, and then maybe you'll see hitters hitting more, and then you'll realize that having a pitcher batting isn't a problem.
Your argument's flawed.
How's my argument flawed?
Sure. Okay, because sure, yeah, your point. Well, I mean, what you just said, yeah, sure. If pitchers could all consistently hit over 200, then sure, it doesn't make a difference. But they don't. That's the fact of the matter. That's the reality of it. They don't do that. They often hit under 200. Most of them do. I'd say probably at least 75% of them do. Minimum 40 at bats. Besides a handful, Zach Greinke, Madison Bumgarner, and so on. I mean, most of them are shitty hitters, and they're taking runs and opportunities away from their National League teams. And if you want a level playing field, you're going to go with the universal DH.
I mean, it's not like National League teams aren't still winning, and they're not still winning World Series. Because what happens whenever you come over to the National League in the World Series, and the American League guy, the DH, is a guy who can't field for fuck, like Nelson Cruz or somebody like David Ortiz or somebody like Jordan Alvarez. And now you can either accept the defensive liability, and that's going to cost you runs in the long run anyway, because the National League's putting the ball in play, or are you going to not take it and keep him on your bench and have him for one at bat? What are you going to do then? Because at the end, what everybody's shooting for is a World Series. And whenever a National League team goes to an American League team, they get to add that additional hitter. But whenever the American League teams have to come to the National League teams, they have to choose whether or not they're going to sacrifice that bat, or if they're going to play him out there for a defensive liability. Because 9 times out of 10, the guy who's batting DH can't field for fuck. So are you going to take what, like, it's not like the National League's not winning. You know, everybody can say, oh, the DH adds so much more offense. The DH does this. But it doesn't matter. The National League still wins World Series. It's not like, yes, the American League scores more runs, but it's not like the American League has won the last 44 fucking World Series. There's not a statistical proof to say, hey, this team is better than this team. This league's better than this league. Like, I don't care what they're doing during the regular season, because everybody's going to make it to National League teams, and the American League teams are going to make it to the playoffs.
Listen,
no matter what.
I'm not saying they're not winning. It would be a small change, but you know, a couple extra runs or two per game, not even, can go a long way. I mean, just here and there, you know, like I discussed, wins above replacement is going up. You know, you could potentially have a couple more wins due to more offensive production. And, you know, sometimes the season comes down to just a couple wins from making or missing the playoffs. And to reply to your defensive liability point about the American League designated hitter playing the field, which was a good point. I will give you that. Because it does take something away from the field, but then you still have that bat to potentially make up for any runs that were given up due to the liability, which, you know, are usually few and far between. I know Nelson Cruz has had some big defensive errors.
Nelson Cruz is the entire sole reason that the St. Louis Cardinals won the 2011 World Series.
Yeah, and
if you have a guy who can field and actually run a route properly and not misplay off the wall, he makes that catch, and the Rangers are World Series champs.
Yeah, I mean, it happens, but sometimes, you know, it can happen to some of the best fielders. Everyone makes errors. I mean, nobody's perfect out there, typically. But, you know,
don't get me wrong, the Nationals scooted in last year in the wild card game off an error.
Yeah, but Trent Grisham did the same. I mean, it made a similar fuck up. I mean, you know, and then you could say that's the only reason the Nationals won the World Series. I mean, because they wouldn't have even gotten anywhere farther without that happening. So, I mean, these things do happen, but, you know, you're talking about strategy, and I guess that's a strategy. Or is this guy is his bat worth potentially making an error or two, or is he not worth it? You take the bat out of his hands, you put in a more defensive player out there, and, you know, potentially your offensive runs per game is affected. So, you know, that's part of, I guess, the strategy, you could say, when an AL team plays an NL team.
I think that takes a lot of strategy on whether or not that's the one time I will say where an AL manager actually has to use strategy, like more than just looking comparisons between lefty righty splits. Because other than that, like it's cake. You're going to put out the best players against lefties, or you're going to put out the best players against righties, depending on who's pitching. And there's nothing much more to it. I mean, you may bring in a pinch runner later on just to try to get some speed in a close game, but 9 times out of 10, you're not going to have to make any changes. There are so many National League games where your whole entire bench gets utilized. Like, everybody's playing. Everybody's seeing playing time. And there's a lot of players, I can almost promise you, in the American League seeing such significant lower playing time than other players in the National League, just because maybe not even playing time per se, because some batters in the National League may only get one at bat a game. But the thing is, they're seeing almost every game, because you're going to have some of those batters on there who are going to come in almost every single game. And every single time a relief pitcher comes up, you're probably going to have a pinch hitter. Most National League games, most National League teams will probably use anywhere between 2 or 3 substitutions a game. And you probably only have 4 or 5 batters on your bench. Like, players are being utilized more. Like, you're going to see your bench players get utilized more. The only person who typically doesn't get used in the National League is the backup catcher, just in case your catcher goes down. And then most of the time, he's in there the next day or 2 days later. So it's not like your players aren't getting utilized. You're using your entire 25-man roster. And it just seems like an American League bench spot is so not valuable in most situations because you're going to see lefty-righty split. If you say, hey, you're better against righties, once they pull that righty, if it stays righty, guess what? You're sitting on that fucking bench still because it's not like you have to pinch hit for a pitcher. You're probably not going to have to come in and pinch run for anybody. You may, at best, be a defensive substitution. Maybe.
Yeah. Pinch hitting or pinch running for the pitcher is the only difference between the AL and NL bench usage. I mean, they're fairly similar. It's really just based on the situation. And I mean, I don't think the NL has an advantage. That doesn't create an advantage for them that they get to use their entire 25-man roster. It doesn't give them a better chance of winning. I mean, the goal of the game is to win, not to use your whole roster. So I don't think that point has that much of an impact.
I'm not saying that there is an advantage to either side. There's pros and cons of each side because...
What are the cons of a universal DH?
There's no fucking strategy in the game.
That's not a con.
How's that not a con?
That's just something you dislike about it.
It's fucking lame. Who wants to go to a game and just watch the same fucking people?
That's not how it is though. And you know that's actually not how it is. You're not seeing the same lineup every single day.
You're not seeing every single day, but I'm going to see the same 9 throughout the entire game that I went to go see. I'm trying to see a strategic standpoint.
And situation of the game. It depends on what kind of game you see.
And plus, who doesn't shit their fucking bricks when a pitcher actually does something?
That has nothing to do with it.
Who doesn't fucking jerk off every night to Bartolo Colon taking James Shields' yard?
These are just things you like to see. This doesn't make baseball better.
You mean to tell me a pitcher going yard is not as cool as a fucking hitter going yard?
It's a highlight. I like it. It's fun.
Yeah, it makes baseball better.
Not better for the NL.
How is it not better?
When
was the last time you saw Masahiro Tanaka go yard? When was the last time you saw Luis Severino go yard?
When was the last time you saw them get more than like 10 at-bats a season?
Exactly, because they're not fucking hitting.
I don't need them to hit. I want them to pitch. I need a shutout. I need a win.
Are American League or National League pitchers not pitching?
They are, but I'm not focused on hitting.
DeGrom, Max Scherzer are probably the 2 filthiest pitchers in the league, and they're both in the National League, and they hit.
Scherzer can't hit.
Scherzer may not, but DeGrom still can. DeGrom fucking pitched a complete game shutout and got a 2-run double, and the only runs that were scored were because of him.
I can do without it. I don't need it.
Nobody needs it, but it's better for the game.
I'd rather have Thomas Nido come off the bench and DH instead of DeGrom.
That is fucking disgusting. That is sad.
Listen, it's not, it's better.
You want Rangel Ravello in there instead of fucking Jack Flaherty?
You want Mario Mendoza pinch hitting for somebody. It really doesn't matter. Any hitter, I will say this again, any hitter is going to be a better option than a pitcher.
But there is no fucking no.
There are exceptions, but DeGrom's not that great of a hitter. He can do it from time to time, but he's not going to out-hit an actual hitter. I mean, besides like Greinke and Bumgarner, I think I'm going with a DH. But universal DH, you can still, if you choose, let the pitcher hit.
I mean, you can.
You have that option. So there's nothing stopping it. Just no one's going to want a hitter hitting 095 mid-season when you're trying to rack up some wins if you can put a hitter in there.
But how often are you coming to how often as an American League team are you coming to a National League park having to have a pitcher in there and you're going to play your DH? Because your DH is going to suck balls out in the fucking field and they're not going to be able to do anything.
Well, if there's a universal DH, then he won't have to go out in the field.
Well, but right now there's not.
That's why I'm vouching for it. That's why I'm trying to say like it's good for baseball.
But I'm saying right now, if you were to if everything sticks the same, let's say the Yankees are playing the Mets. Are you playing Stanton out there?
Yes, Stanton is a fine fielder.
Okay, maybe a bad example because Stanton's a little bit better. But if you're a Twins fan, are you going to go play Nelson Cruz?
No, because we don't need him that game. We have a stacked outfield.
Right. So what's the point?
So we don't need him then. It's fine. Players rarely play 162 games anymore anyway. So, I'm not really worried about it.
But
If you have depth, you don't need him for those few games. I mean,
you mean to tell me? Okay, now if you're the Twins, if you're going to the World Series, are you not playing Nelson Cruz?
I'll see how Kepler
The man who put up 40 plus bombs every single season since he was like 13. Are you not going to play Nelson Cruz?
I'd have to play it situationally. You'd have to see Kepler's coming into his own, as is Rosario, and Buxton out in center field. I'm starting Buxton because I need that speed and fielding. So, you'd have to play it by strategy.
Rosario can play a little bit of infield, but what bat do you sacrifice out there? Or are you really going to go sit Nelson Cruz?
I'd have to see who's pitching that day and whatever the case is,
What about somebody like Shohei Ohtani? What do you do with that?
Shohei Ohtani's he's a two-way player. That doesn't affect him.
But he's a DH when he hits.
Okay, and then when he's a pitcher, he pitches. Or what's your
point?
Right.
But what are you doing with him if he's DHing? Are you just going to sit him? He's a good bat. What are you going to do with him?
He can play the outfield.
Effectively? We haven't seen him do it.
He's played the outfield before.
How often has he played the outfield?
I don't have the numbers on me, but I know he's been out there before.
There's just a lot of DHs. Like, I'm not going to put JD Martinez in the field. I'm not going to put Nelson Cruz in the field. I'm not going to do this because I know it's going to cost me in the long run. And they're not going to make – it's like putting Jose – even as a Cardinals fan, we had Jose Martinez, and I was waiting for him to be traded to an American League team because he's not a National League player. He can't field for shit. He's a horrible speed. He's got no arm. He's a horrible route runner. He can't get himself to the baseball. And we had to sit him because it's the strategic play. You cannot put him out there because he is a liability. And we tried to teach him first, and he sucks at first too. So we shipped him off to the American League because he's not worth keeping him in the National League. And
there you go. You just supported your own point. JD Martinez, you sit him because he can't field. But you have enough production as to where it's okay. Same with Nelson Cruz.
It's not okay. That's why we got rid of him. Obviously, his production wasn't enough. That's why we got rid of him.
Well, the two examples you gave me were American League teams playing interleague.
Well, I'm saying with a player like that, you have looking at JD Martinez, he was a good bat, but his defensive liability is not worth keeping him in the lineup. I don't care if he's giving me 2 runs a game if he's allowing 4.
You realize how often they play interleague? It's little enough as to where
I'm talking about JD Martinez in our every single day lineup. JD Martinez was a right fielder for the St. Louis Cardinals, and then they tried to move him to first base.
Jose Martinez.
Jose.
You keep saying JD.
I do not.
I swear you said JD.
I swear you're tripping.
We'll look back at the tape, but
I can promise to God that I will not be tripping, and I'll put a little check mark right here, right over my face, because I'm not tripping.
I want a big red X in front of your face when that happens.
Jose Martinez.
There you go.
St. Louis Cardinal, former, now Tampa Bay Ray, Jose Martinez is not worth the defensive liability that he is. He is slow. He is a horrible route runner, a horrendous fielder, one of the worst I've seen. And he is not worth the offensive production. Even though he was batting over 300, he had the team's best batting average, and he wasn't worth the production because I'm not taking a guy who's going to give me 2 runs but allow 4. And that's exactly why we shipped him off to the American League, because he's not a National League player. Because all he's good for is his bat. And that's what it comes to strategy. You need to have people who can field. You need to have people who can hit. You can put anybody out in the fucking American League because you're going to have some other stacked batter coming up. And there's no point in a lot of American League batters or in a lot of American League lineups where you actually have to think about it strategically, other than the fact of maybe lefty-righty matchups.
Well, statistically, Christian Yelich of the Milwaukee Brewers isn't the best fielder. And he's the team's best hitter. Are you shipping him off to an American League team?
I mean, no, but his numbers are much higher than Jose Martinez's. He's also got a batting average that's 40 points higher. He's also hitting 20 more home runs a season. You got to think he's an MVP candidate. Jose Martinez has never been there.
So the Cardinals' best hitter hit under 300?
No, he was hitting above 300. He was in at a time he was around 300, 310.
Okay. Well, then just the numbers are off. But
And we still shipped him because he is so bad defensively. And in a National League team, you need to be able to have. I mean, in any team, you should have people who can field and people who can hit. And in a National League, you can't afford to be giving up runs, and that's what makes it strategic. Because you're like, all right, I have this great, phenomenal hitter. That's amazing. Mark Reynolds was an amazing hitter. He wasn't a great defensive player. Same with Jose Martinez, an amazing bat, but not the best defensively. You can't tell me somebody like Kyle Schwarber should be in a National League lineup because he is such a fucking liability. In left field, he only gets people hurt, and he's not a good enough catcher as Wilson Contreras. There's no reason for him to be in a lineup. And his offensive numbers aren't there really. I mean, he's a good offensive hitter, don't get me wrong. But, like, do you want to have somebody who's gaining you one run a game but also allowing you one or two a game? Like, you have to think about it strategically. And so then what do? And that's what makes National League so much better, is that it is so much more of a thinking game, and baseball is supposed to be a strategic game. It's over 9 innings for a reason. Not everything's supposed to happen in 1 inning.
no one gives up 1 or 2 runs per game as a defensive player. That doesn't happen. It's here and there, but I see why Schwarber's still on the team. His offensive production is to their standards, and he's versatile enough to be a backup catcher and outfielder at the same time, which I think is perfect for a team like the Cubs. But yeah, I mean, it might not be the strategic thing, but having a DH will increase offensive production and create a more level playing field overall. So
that's great that you're having offensive production, but again, like, you talk about that, what you're worried about is winning, and at the end of the day, World Series are still going to National League teams. So how much is the DH really affecting it? Yes, your offensive numbers are high. No shit. Like, you're going to have a guy who's batting 100 as opposed to, or a guy in your lineup who's batting 300 as opposed to 100. The Nationals just won a World Series. Where's their DH?
Defensive woes won't be a problem with the universal DH. You know, Cruz can have his at bats in a National League stadium. You know, it completely covers the dilemma you presented. You know, JD Martinez can get his at bats. Nelson Cruz can get his at bats. Jose Martinez, if he was still in the Cardinals, can get his at bats all season long. And you wouldn't have to trade people just because they can't play defense.
I don't want there to be just like a universal rule. The beauty of it is that it's separate.
There are plenty of universal rules.
I understand that baseball has many universal rules. Every sport has universal rules. But the beauty of them being in 2 different leagues is that they're different. What's the point of having an American League team or an American League and a National League if they're not different?
What's the point of an Eastern Conference and a Western Conference? What's the point of a national?
That's divisional. That is directional. They are separated based off of where they're at in America.
Right.
This is not that.
It doesn't matter whether it's direct. It's 2 different conferences, 2 different leagues. It's a league within one. They're still they play ball under the same roof, so it should be equal for everyone.
I don't see a world in where the universal DH.
It's coming. It's just a matter of time. You better get ready.
It shouldn't, and if it does, they better start letting fucking players start munching on steroids again.
That's bad for baseball too.
Oh, that is not bad for baseball. No.
That's a whole separate conversation.
You are not going to say that's bad for baseball. Another episode's coming.
There is a part 2 to this, and we're covering steroids.
Oh my God, I'm fucking logging off now. I need to fucking start that debate. All right, I've been Will Polston. That's Matt Perry. Tell us what you think about the universal DH. Tell us if you like pitchers being in the lineup, or if you're wrong. Feel free to follow us on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts. We're on all of those. Also hit up our Instagram at GMs4, the number 4, higher. We're on there as well. Always try to post content and previews of our videos. Make sure you check out our little small show that we're trying to tip off a little bit now, RJ's Pit Stop, where our buddy RJ Strope is going to be covering NASCAR events. May not be your style, but give it a shot anyway. You know, it's the one American sport going on right now. Give it some love. So, what's up? He is having fun out there. You know, he's doing his part. So until then, I've been Will Polston. It's Matt Perry. We're the GMs for Hire. Peace.